everybody, it's me, Laura, the Eggcentric Egg Lady, and today we're going to be creating Where the Columbines Grow. And you're like, okay, why Columbines? Well, I live in the state of Colorado, and that's not only the state song, but it's also the state flower. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and we're going to create our oval right on the front of our eggshell. Yes, this is an upright egg, and yes, this is a chicken egg, and I'm just doing a quick sketch of this oval. Now I need to mention here that yes, this egg has already been prepped, so that means it's already been bleached out. I don't have to worry about the inner lining, and that's all gone. Okay, so here I've brought in and I've created that second oval around the other one, and now I'm going to start drawing my flower. And this is really, think leaf, and then think also like circular flowers. So in other words, little circles made into a flower. So if you ever doodled when you were a kid, it's a great way to just think, okay, circles. That might help you a little bit. And they're just like, there's like 4 of them in the center. And yes, I mean, I'm doing a quick sketch here, but 4 in the center, and then you got the center ball, of course, for that flower. And then you come out, and then you've got the pointed leaves, or I should say the pointed petals of our columbine. From there, I went ahead and I decided, okay, let's go ahead and create a few leaf types also coming off of there. And when it comes to columbines, you've got to create that long tail on the back end of the flower. So that's what those little lines are off to the side. Anyways, I'm coming back in, I'm redefining this flower and erasing any kind of extra lines that don't really apply. So you're really kind of, I start really loose at first, so I like to just kind of come in, quickly put it down, and then I'll come back in and say, okay, do I like that, or do I need to change up the direction of that petal or that leaf? And so that's what you're seeing me do here. So right here, I have my eraser going, and yes, I am using a regular pencil right here. I'm not using my Blackwing first, but you're going to see that come into play eventually. Now you'll also see that I'm not wearing my glove. Not quite yet, but eventually I am going to start wearing it. And part of this is because since I'm only working on the front side here, I don't have any graphite lines right where I'm holding the egg. So I can get away with it here. Whereas later on, I'm going to have to put on that glove because I'm going to start bringing in extra line, which I'm doing right here to make that middle band. I'm going to make my middle band. I'm going to put my words down where the columbine grows, and then I'll go ahead and draw up the backside as well. Now, a few of you might be wondering, why am I not using my Blackwing pencil yet? Part of this is habit. I've gotten so used to using my 2HB pencil, the standard thing that I always use, that it's just become a habit to pick it up first. The other part was, and really I shouldn't have done this in my mind, but for some reason I kept thinking, well, it's going to react the same way like it does on paper. That's not necessarily true. And I should not have in my mind, really compared paper with eggshell, because they're really 2 different creatures. And you're probably wondering, well, why is that? Well, the thing is with the Blackwing pencil, when you put it down on paper and you try to erase it, sometimes the line doesn't always come up real good. And this is because it's a darker graphite. It really goes down well. And I really should have thought, no, it's not going to make a difference on eggshell, because eggshell is a totally different surface than your paper. All right, so now we're going to start bringing in our Derwent Inktense pencils. And right here, this is my red violet. I thought we're going to go ahead and bring this in and have some fun with it. And I'm bringing in my deep rose. And oh man, these colors are so yummy. They're such butter when you put them down on eggshell. And mind you, I'm putting my darker color right at the, you might say, the little indent there on the flower, and then my lighter coming out from that. I'm going to do that on every single petal here, and then I'm going to come back in with my brush, and I'm just going to add in a little water and move that pigment along. And I should have gone and did the whole flower, but I thought, no, I can't help it. I put the Derwent down and I just want to get to that paintbrush as fast as I can. I just can't seem to help it. Anyway, I'm coming in here and like I said, I love adding in a little bit of that water, and I go more with a drier tendency on my brush than one that is more water filled, okay, if that's any kind of thing. I've also brought in my piece of paper behind me here, and part of that is to like take off any excess pigment on my brush that I might think is unnecessary. So I really do suggest having a little piece of paper right behind you there to kind of just take off any extra if you need. And you can also tell right here in which I am just painting this petal up, you know, I'm taking it up and I'm leaving a very light middle part of the petal, and then my outside edges are going to really have that darker pigment. All right, so now I've gotten kind of my reds down on this flower. I'm going to bring in my greens. And I'm starting with my leaf green in right at the very tip there of my leaves. And then I'm going to bring in my apple green and fill in really on the main area of it. I like to combine these two when I'm doing my leaves of any kind. I don't know, I like the combination of these two. And then when I also add the water, that leaf green gives me a nice dark, so it can kind of come into that apple green, which is lighter, and you get a nicer and, to me, a more believable leaf kind of tone. All right, so now I'm going to bring in my sienna gold, and this is going to be my yellow for the centers of each of my flowers. Now on the front here, I have one that looks like it might be possibly the beginning of a columbine. At least that's kind of the intent in my mind. Anyway, I'm going to put that also on that little ball right there, kind of just representing the center of that soon-to-be flower. Now we're going to finally bring in my Blackwing pencil, and this is a balanced one. That's what it says on the side. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and define up all the edges of my flower, my leaves, and everything else. Another thing I like about the Blackwing is that eraser. It's got a rectangular kind of edge to it, okay? Similar to my little white one, and that's more to a point, but I really like these Blackwings. Also, the nice thing about that, the eraser can come up away from it, so you use up the entire eraser. I love that part. Anyway, I'm defining up and I'm darkening with this particular graphite pencil all the edges. After defining up my line in my flower and with my graphite and all that, I am bringing in my my ink black Derwent Inktense pencil. And I'm going around the edge of this oval and I'm just putting a little bit of pigment all the way around this oval. Once I have that done, I'm going to bring in my paintbrush and I'm going to add just a little bit of water and I'm going to start spreading this pigment all throughout this oval. It gives it a look in my mind like it's inside something or it's in a window or whatever. It gives you that dimension that you would not get otherwise. All right, so right here, I'm just kind of finishing up some of the details in the little window here. And then I'm going to start defining this little area right in here with this S or this scroll kind of like look. It's very, very simple. It's just a scrolly kind of S and then a little dot in between. I thought I'd take a break from my usual, how do I say, checker? I love putting checker in all of my little borders, but I thought, no, let's give it a break and let's try something a little different. Okay, so I've been in love with this peacock blue that Derwent makes, and so I decided to use that in my ribbon area. So throughout the little front, the little front area here and wherever I've got the other little ribbon, I want to say probably on the back side, that's what I used in this area. It was just a nice blue to use. Once I have this taken care of though, I'm going to go ahead and varnish over the entire front of this egg. Here's also another little FYI on this Blackwing pencil. When you are using it on eggshell, I use my brush quite a bit to brush it off. Don't use your finger. You are more likely to smear that thing. Yes, the graphite is definitely intense. It's not a 2B pencil. It's not like a B pencil where they're really soft and they'll just automatically smudge. But because it's got such a dark graphite, just be careful with how you use it. That being said, though, I do love these things. This particular pencil is a wonderful one to use, and part of it is the feel. This thing goes down smoother than a regular graphite pencil. In other words, it feels nice when you use it. It's hard to describe, but that's probably the best way to describe it. Anyway, when I used this thing, I also made sure that when you varnish with this or you varnish over it, also be careful because you have such dark graphite, there can be a little bit more of a tendency for it to run. And I don't mean as in like it's going to automatically do that. I'm just saying that there's a lot of graphite there, so be careful. One and done, as I always say it. When it comes to the varnish, one and done. Now here I've brought in my Posca and I wanted to put it in between on the border where the graphite was. Part of this was because, yes, it was the graphite. It kind of smeared on me under my varnish. So I came back in with my Posca marker, and this thing, I can't tell you how many times my Posca has saved me. Oh my goodness. Not to mention the fact that it gives great detail when it comes to little dots that you'll be seeing here on my flower. We have now come to the band that runs right around and over the top of the center of the egg. And this thing will have the words, "Where the Columbines grow." And when I did this thing, I thought, let's go ahead and make it just kind of like the front area in that oval where you've got that ink black. I'm going to run that particular wash over that area of this band. And then once I have that in, I'm going to go back over my words with my Blackwing pencil. Now here's the thing. As I started getting used to using my Blackwing, I realized, why am I pressing so hard? I don't need to press so hard. Not with the Blackwing. That's what I discovered with this graphite. When you're writing with a regular pencil, sometimes you got to bear down a little bit more. Not with this thing. You can go, lighter, and it will still give you a nice, intense, dark line. And when it comes to the ink black, where I've got the wash going down, understand I'm going to go back in along the edge and I'm going to add a little bit more black so I can get a nice defined line. I also did that in the front too, so if I forgot to mention that, there you go. Okay, so here I'm bringing in my Blackwing once more, and this is really where I discovered that I don't need to bear down quite so badly. I really don't. When I just let up just a little bit, I discovered, oh, it's going down just fine. I'm getting that nice dark line, and I did not have to use my brush necessarily to brush any extra graphite off the shell. So keep that in mind when you're using these. And the other thing here, this is a little bit of practice. I had to learn this just from practicing just a wee bit with this graphite pencil to really know how it would react. All right, so now that we're starting to move towards the back side, did you guys really think I'd get away from my checker border? It was just not gonna happen. Yes, I decided to bring in my checker border and I'm putting it on the back side here. I don't know. There's something about this, unless I could find a better pattern that I absolutely love, this is probably going to be one of those things that I just like to include in on my eggshell designs. Anyway, so once I get this checker border done, I'm going to go ahead and take my varnish and I'm going to varnish over the entire middle section of the eggshell. Okay, so I'm going to admit to a little mistake I did here on the back side. I was intending to do this particular set of flowers with the same colors I had on the front. So I was going to use my deep rose and my red violet. Well, I picked up the wrong pencil. I thought I had the right one, I didn't. I was like, okay, and I picked up, instead of my red violet, I picked up my deep violet. And so that's what I started with first. And so I got a nice purpley flower here. And the thing is, Columbines, that's what they are as well. It's not just the red, but it's also the purple. And so I thought, let's just leave it. It's fine, we'll just go with it. And the more I look on it, I thought, yeah, this is kind of a nice happy accident for me. And part of this was because this way gives you an idea or an option. Instead of just doing that deep rose in the front, you know, maybe you try the deep violet instead. So keep that in mind when creating the Columbine flowers. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys watch my hands talk as I finish up using my Derwent Inktense pencils on the back side of this eggshell design. All right, so I want to mention here, I'm going to bring in my brush here in a second, and I'm going to go ahead and varnish over this piece. And when I do, I'm going to be using a very tiny brush. I'm not going to be using a big flat one like I've done in the past. I had discovered that when I use a little bit on a smaller brush, I can control that varnish, and really, if any kind of color tries to run, it really makes a difference. So if you're really concerned about making sure that the pigment doesn't run or that your graphite might smear or anything like that, use a smaller brush. You can control the outcome then. Okay, at this point I've varnished over the entire egg with another coating after I varnished over the backside. Once I did that, I decided we need to bring in a little bit of extra flash, and so that's what this rhinestone chain is. I measured it out so it would be approximately what I needed, and I start to lay this down on the back side. I use like a dot of super glue right at the middle of the back, and then let that chain just kind of run all the way around, gluing down where I needed to keep that chain in place. Now once I have that chain down to where I like it, I trimmed off a little bit just to make sure it fit all the way around. And then once I have this around the base, I'm going to take that longer chain and I'm going to run that up over the egg. And I'm going to have it meet up with the other rhinestone chain at the very bottom. When it comes to running this second bit of chain up and over the egg, use like a dot of super glue at each little juncture, or even just a line where you plan to put down the whole line. Once you have that in place, and I really suggest, I've gotten pretty good at this, but if you're really worried about it, keep it in place, okay, and wait until it dries. Wait until it completely dries through, and then add in a little bit more glue to do the next section of chain to run all the way along. For me, I've gotten so used to super glue, I know exactly when to, like, okay, I need to pull it up because it's not quite adhered, and get it to work for me. So I had a little bit of this leftover rhinestone chain, and I decided to add it in at the front. So right around that first oval that I started, I decided to add little sections of rhinestone. So I put one on the one side, and you can have it as long or as short as you wish. I also did it on the other side where the leaf was, and when I put it by the leaf, I thought, let's let the leaf kind of come out of that boundary. Let's not go over it at all. Let's just put the rhinestone where it meets right up to that leaf, and then on the other side of it as well. Once I got the chain down, I thought, you know what, I need to have some single rhinestones in here. So I went over to my high-speed, low-speed drill, and this was just an added thing I decided to do at the very last minute. I made some holes into the flowers themselves, and I made them big enough so that when I took my pointed-backed clear rhinestones, I could go ahead and glue them in real easy like. Now I'm going to start working on my little single rhinestones, and I'm using my super glue here. I'm putting a little bit of glue right over the hole, and these little pointed back rhinestones are anywheres from an SS8 on up to an SS12. In this pattern it was an SS10 and under. Now, I know you guys have noticed that I use my fingers a lot in placing these rhinestones down. If you're having trouble with that, just use a waxy tip like I did here. It will probably make it a whole lot easier once you place these rhinestones in. Alright, so this is the end result in creating Where the Columbines Grow. Please use this for study and reference, and if you guys like this video, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you're thinking. Otherwise, I am sending out my biggest hugs to each of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.